Before joining the United States in 1845, Texas was a fully independent country. Now, nearly 180 years later, a significant minority of Texans are once again talking seriously about independence, a movement known as Texit. And this movement is growing. In March 2023, a bill to hold an independence referendum was introduced in the Texas House of Representatives. It failed at the committee stage, but this was the second time this has been tried, and pro-independence activists plan to keep trying until they succeed. Could the Republic of Texas be born again? Here's the story. In the 1830s, Texas was part of Mexico, but the vast majority of its non-native residents were white Americans and their black slaves, who immigrated to the region by the thousands. These immigrants soon revolted against their new country, and in 1836 declared independence as the Republic of Texas. This lasted for 9 years. An economic crash and crushing government debt forced Texas to seek annexation by the U.S. in 1845. Texas seceded to join the Confederacy during the Civil War, but for 130 years after this, there were no prominent secession or independence movements. This changed in the 1990s with the rise of the Republic of Texas movement, led by McClaren. McClaren argued that Texas was a captive nation and sued the U.S. government for $93 trillion in reparations. He is now in prison, following an armed standoff with state police. In 2005, a much more credible pro-independence organization was founded, the Texas Nationalist movement, led by Daniel Miller. The TNM is a nonviolent, conventional political organization, and despite promoting what many people think is a fringe cause, it's been remarkably successful, claiming nearly 500,000 supporters. As mentioned, independence referendum bills were introduced to the Texas state legislature in 2021 and 2023, and in 2022, holding an independence referendum actually became part of the Texas Republican Party platform. So what exactly is the TNM proposing, other than a referendum? In 2018, Miller published The Definitive Guide to the Movement, a book called Texit. In it, he argues that the U.S. federal government has strayed so far from its founding principles that it's beyond saving, that secession is completely legal and would benefit the people of Texas, and then proposes a course of action broadly similar to the one taken by the United Kingdom when it left the European Union. This book is well written, and I enjoyed reading it, but ultimately, the argument for Texit is flawed. It's not the claim that secession would be legal that's the biggest problem, even though most constitutional experts would reject it. It's the prediction that Texas would economically benefit from independence that doesn't make sense. The book argues that after clawing back money taken by the federal government, eliminating bureaucracy, and increasing economic freedom, secession would be a massive economic benefit to Texans. Quote, over time, the average Texan could see a 400% increase in take-home pay. This would make Texas the richest country in the world, per capita, by a huge margin. The truth is, Texit is much more likely to make Texans poorer, not richer, especially if it plays out in a similar way that Brexit has done in the UK. After the Brexit referendum, the EU faced an existential threat. If the UK benefited from leaving, more countries would want to do the same, and the EU would fall apart. So it played hardball and ensured the UK was worse off after Brexit, even though this hurt Europe's economy. This strategy worked. Brexit hasn't produced any tangible benefits, but has generated a lot of hassle and has substantially depressed the UK economy. The other exit movements across Europe, once prominent, have now died off. If the US government agrees to let Texas leave the Union peacefully, a big assumption, it would be in the same position as the EU. If Texas benefits from leaving, other states will want to do likewise. So it would be a vital US interest to ensure Texans are worse off after secession. This would actually be pretty easy, as the US would have far more leverage over Texas than the EU had over the UK. For example, it could force American banks to leave Texas, make crossing the US-Texas border a huge hassle, or even ban Texas football teams from playing in American leagues. Now that would really hurt. But the easiest way to make Texas suffer would be punishing trade tariffs. In 2022, Texas exported more than any other state, so its economy needs exports just to maintain its current size, let alone grow. In his book, Miller claims Texas could avoid high tariffs by quickly adopting World Trade Organization rules. But that's simply not true. Joining the WTO takes years, sometimes decades. Until then, Texas would have to pay whatever tariffs the US or other countries want to impose, and just suffer the consequences. Don't get me wrong, a newly independent Texas could survive. Texas is full of determined and enterprising people who can make the best of a bad situation. But a bad situation is not the future being promised to Texans by independence advocates. The United States is far from perfect, but it remains one of the most free and prosperous countries in the world. If the people of Texas truly want prosperity and freedom, their best option is to stay in the Union, not leave it.